Well, so far my playoff prediction is going just as the way I thought it was going to be, which is absolutely terrible. And I think somewhere in Portland, I think Timbers fans are sweating right now because remember I did pick them to win MLS Cup and that I did pick them to win MLS Cup over Atlanta United, and judging by the fact that Atlanta wasn't able to get a win against NYCFC, yeah, there could be a case where the two teams I picked to go to MLS Cup might not even make it out of the first round. And this upcoming game between the Timbers and Minnesota, I'm going to have some conflict interest with the way that, on one hand, I want to see the Loons win because, they're my team. But on the other hand, I don't want to see the Loons win either because if they do win, that means the Timbers were eliminated, and my prediction gets even worse with the way that not only I got 3 out of the 4 wrong in the first round, but pretty much the two teams I predict to make it to the MLS Cup didn't even make it out of the first round. But in terms of this games, well, this was a game where, it was kind of competitive for the first 40 minutes of this game, but then NYCFC kind of took over near the end of the first half, carried that momentum in the second half, and Atlanta just kind of decided to go with their typical sports narrative where something tells me at halftime, probably Gonzalo Pineda tell his guys that, it's been great that we have made it to the playoffs and finally meet the expectation that we were supposed to have this season. But, I think that's good enough. Let's just maybe think about next year and also kind of just continue that Atlanta sports narrative of how Atlanta sports team always fails in the playoffs. I mean, the Braves kind of broke that narrative a little bit, and Gonzalo Pineda is probably happy the fact that his team didn't break that narrative this time because in the second half they basically decided not to show up, and in some way they were probably even ready to warm up the bus and go to JFK to go back to Atlanta with the way that they were playing in the beginning of the second half. Now, early on, first thing I want to mention is that there was a lot of empty seats around Yankee Stadium to start the game. Now, obviously, eventually the stadium did kind of get a little bit more filled up. And, John Champion did mention earlier that 25,000 tickets has been sold, which early on I thought, I don't think so, because when I look at the stadium, it still looked really empty. But I guess it's maybe that one of those cases where it was a late crowd and people, couldn't get into the stadium. And I did hear that there were a lot of people having trouble in terms of getting into the stadium, but nevertheless, 25,000. I mean, it might sound impressive for an NYCFC game because when you watch a lot of NYCFC home game, especially at Yankee Stadium this season, it has never been close to being filled. There's always a lot of empty seats around the stadium, and cue the discussion now of the fact that if they would have played in a soccer specific stadium, they probably would have sold more than they had. But nevertheless, eventually it did kind of packed out a little bit, though I did still saw some empty seats around the stadium. And for a playoff game, usually never able to see some empty seat. Like, it's kind of inexcusable to see empty seats in playoff games. I mean, I know it's taking place at Yankee Stadium and it's not ideal, but still, I'm kind of disappointed with the way that there was still some empty seats in this game. But at least you could say that it wasn't as much as what I first saw when this game, of course, kicked off. Although not much really happened early, so those late arriving crowd, they didn't really miss much because it looked like this was kind of a typical playoff game where both teams are just kind of feeling each other out, and even some say that they were kind of worried that this is like yesterday's game between the Union and the Red Bulls, where both teams just kind of never figure it out until very late into the game, and we're in for another snooze fest. Though there was a huge shout for a penalty from NYCFC, but the offside flag was already up, so any case of them potentially go to VAR to see whether or not if that was a penalty in the box was all gone because of the offside flag being up first. But both teams, I thought they did start to try to play quickly on the build-up, but it's just the final. They're just not there for them, and that's kind of the reason why there wasn't really a lot of chances in this game. In fact, the shots were only 3-0 in favor of Atlanta through the first 30 minutes. And just like yesterday's game where we only had we were stuck at one shot on goal for pretty much the entire regular time, this was kind of the same case for the first 30 minutes. We were just stuck on that one shot on goal. Though Marcelino Moreno did put it wide from 20 yards down the 34th minute, and then Guzan denied Morales, as that was really NYCFC first shot of the game, and little did we know that's what actually sparked this team because they started to kind of carry the momentum. Rodriguez thought that he scored the opening goal for NYCFC, but the goal was disallowed for offside. Now, there was a discussion that whether or not if Bello actually played Rodriguez onside, and when they look on the camera angle of that a couple of times, yeah, it is really tough to tell. And I know there was a lot of people that was complaining about the camera angle of this game, which, you know, it's not surprised because anytime when it's at the game is at Yankee Stadium, I always hear three things that people always complain. Why is this game played on a baseball stadium? Why exactly the camera angle is absolutely awful, and why exactly the field looks absolutely narrow? That looks like a five-a-side pitch. But yeah, I think in the end it was the right call with the way that there was just not enough evidence to maybe overturn that call with VAR. So the goal, of course, was rightfully disallowed. But there was no doubt that momentum was with NYCFC heading into halftime. Castellanos did try to hit one in, but he had a weak one hopper that goes straight to Guzan, and we had to halftime scoreless between both of these teams, though NYCFC probably were kind of frustrated the fact that the halftime whistle was eventually blown because, you know, they had the momentum, and we've seen before where when teams have the momentum heading into halftime, they almost don't want the halftime whistle to be blown, but it can potentially kill their momentum. But that was not the case heading into the second half because straight out of the gate, Castellanos tried a spectacular goal, but he puts it wide there. But just 2 minutes later, he would be on target as he would score from Maxi Morales to give NYCFC a 1-0 lead. And in some way, he kind of hit this shot, but somehow the Atlanta players and Guzan in general, they just kind of stopped playing. Almost feel like, oh, looks like that ball is going to go wide. No, that actually went into the back of the net. It was just a complete lack of concentration by this Atlanta backline, and that pretty much gave NYCFC a 1-0 lead. They almost made it 2-0 when Amundsen puts it just wide in the 51st minute, and it was just all NYCFC. And again, they really carried the momentum that they had at the end of the first half into the second half. And just 1 minute after I wrote that down, they would double their lead. And it's Callens, the ones that gives NYCFC a 2-0 lead. Again, the Atlanta backline completely switched off here. I mean, originally this one was hit off the post, but you know, you can clearly see the Atlanta backline was slow to react to that, and Callens was the first one to react to that rebound. He puts it in to give NYCFC a 2-0 lead, and yeah, I mean, at that point, you just kind of had a feeling that this is really starting to get away from Atlanta. Johnson then denied Martinez from close range. Martinez, he kind of had a bit of a quiet game until the second half, where there was definitely some chances that he could have scored, and this is also where it goes back to the fact that, you know, remember how I said Joseph Martinez was going to have a good playoffs, and, you know, I've said before how he has come up with big playoff goal before. Well, this was not one of those, and in fact, you know, this game kind of completely changed the narrative of what I thought it was going to happen. I thought Joseph Martinez was going to be the one that will have a great playoff game, whereas some of those star NYCFC player like Maxi Morales is probably going to continue his legacy of failure of performing in the playoffs. But that's completely different. I mean, Maxi Morales was really the star of this NYCFC team, and probably really deserved man of the match award with the way how this game went. But anyway, after that missed opportunity from Atlanta, the Olay chants was definitely ringing out around Yankee Stadium. They were definitely enjoying themselves watching their team up 2-0. I mean, it's a rare thing to do because they've seen so much frustration in the playoffs, and for once, maybe this feels like this is finally the year where they end that narrative. But in the 63rd minute, Guzan did deny Morales from the far post. I think Maxi Morales didn't get on the score sheet. Well, he didn't get on the score sheet, but again, he was very influential and almost kind of turned back the clock of 2018 Maxi Morales when he was at not only 2018 but also 2019 Maxi Morales form when he was at his best with this team. But in the 69th minute, there was a shout for a penalty from NYCFC that was not given. I think it was Castellanos, the one that was shouting for a penalty. But knowing the fact that, you know, the referee, he probably knows that Tati Castellanos is notorious in terms of trying to maybe dive in the box or trying to kind of initiate contact when it's there. He didn't really bite into terms of debate, so no penalty was given there. Morales then drive one that goes high in the 75th minute, and while NYCFC was looking for the third to really kill this game off, Atlanta, they just looked like they were pretty much checking out. I mean, they did try to push one back. I mean, there was a couple of chances that they create, but the body language of this team looked like they look like they're down and out. They look like they're ready to check out and think about next season. Johnson then denied Lennon from long range in the 81st minute. There was some pushing and shoving from both teams because near the end of the game, and usually you do have some pushing and shoving, especially it can always start with the losing team kind of getting frustrating and trying to maybe instigate a little bit. They're trying to get on the nerves of the winning team and maybe even send one of their playoff off. But in the 90th minute, Martinez basically blazed it high from long range, which kind of just sums up Atlanta this game. I mean, it's turned out to be a very disappointing game, and that disappointment continued into the second minute of stoppage time when Alan Franco had to take the walk of shame at Yankee Stadium, getting his second yellow card and getting a red out of this to pretty much wraps off what is a very disappointing afternoon for Atlanta United in New York. But that's not the case for NYCFC, as they of course win 2-0 to move on into the next round against New England. Only the second playoff win in this franchise history, and I will say that the narrative of their playoff failure definitely stopped in this game, but the key word is stop, because I'm not going to say just yet that the playoff failure narrative with this team has ended just yet, because if they want to end that, they need to move past the second round and need to go up to New England and able to prove that they can get a win in that game against a really good New England team. But at least for now, they did kind of stop the narrative a little bit that maybe this year is going to be different. But the shots in this one, 13 shots committed, 9 that Atlanta has, 5 shots on goal for the 4 that Atlanta has, 4 shots off target for the 3 that Atlanta has, 4 shots off block for the 2 that Atlanta has, and possession-wise, 58% possession compared to 42% possession that NYCFC has in this team. And for Atlanta, I think this offseason there's going to be some interesting decision that they will make, in the way that I think this offseason maybe Gonzalo Pineda will get a chance to kind of evaluate his team, because I think this Atlanta team, as much as the signings that they made in the offseason, and they brought in a lot of what we thought was decent player, they still look nothing like the team that we saw a couple of years ago that just dominate MLS. And I think this offseason they're maybe even going to think about getting some of the players that they bought in the last offseason that clearly does not fit into this team, or maybe get some more attacking pieces in this team too, with the way that I think they still need another guy that can pretty much put the pressure off of Joseph Martinez in terms of goal scoring form, because it's pretty clear that I think after this game, teams will realize that all you have to do is just make sure Joseph Martinez doesn't put on a show for Atlanta, because if you can stop Joseph Martinez, you can definitely stop this Atlanta United team. And if that's kind of the case, it's kind of a sign that you probably need another option in terms of the attack to really get this team flying in next season. But we'll see what Gonzalo Pineda is going to do. And that, I know, as much as it is kind of a disappointing season, it's been kind of a weird season for Atlanta United, where there's been hope that they might finally get back to their 2018 team form, but then there's just kind of signs where they just look lackluster and aren't able to get back to that good form that they had a couple of years ago. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of this game. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.